Welcome to the Empowered Team podcast. I am so excited to be welcoming Dallas Burnett. Now, this is not an easy introduction, I can say by any means, because you have such an interesting background. You're the author of 3 books, Move, Lift, which is a national bestseller, and Caveman Delegation. You've been featured in People magazine. You hold patents in water treatment technology. You've spoken at the Pentagon on leadership and performance. Like you're a founder of Think, Move, and Thrive. You've got a lot going on. You own a publishing company.
Yeah.
There's so much going on here. I can barely. You are the definition of a serial entrepreneur. So I don't even know which direction to take this. I find it so interesting. I think our listeners will find it so interesting too. Tell me, like, how did you progress into these very different things between publishing, between speaking and leadership? How did that come
How did
about?
that happen?
Yeah. And is there something that you really wish I had said?
This is great. No, we can jump in. I mean, I'm definitely, there's some people when they're like in 6th grade in elementary school that they're like, I'm going to be a teacher. And then they go be a teacher and they're happy and they just do teaching for their whole career. And they used to make me so upset because when I was 6th grade, I have no idea what I want to do. I have no idea. And then I graduated high school. I still have no idea. And so I think I'm in my mid 40s now and still have no idea. I'm just doing. So a lot of that, those experiences are experiences that were opportunities. And I'm a number 7 on the Enneagram for any of your listeners who are big time Enneagram fans. I'm a number 7. So I usually am going to have about 4 or 5 things going at once, but I also like variety. And what's weird is I like seeing the connections between things that maybe don't necessarily connect. Like what's the same about running a dental service organization and dentist offices as an air balancing technical service company? Well, it's fascinating. There's a lot of things that overlap. So just seeing all these different things in my career, there's common threads through all of it. And I think innovation and creativity is something that I've really used in all of those areas, whether it was early in my 20s and I was a songwriter and doing all that kind of stuff, or whether it was water treatment, coming up with these ideas for patents and things. It's just this kind of theme of creativity and innovation and kind of the adventure through what's available, what's opportunity out there, and what can we do with it. So yeah, that's just kind of that's my MO,
This is so cool. There's a couple of things. I think that there are a lot of people out there who have interests in different things, but they don't actually take action on all of it. And you've taken action on a lot of it. And then at the same time, I look around and I think that a lot of people maybe get bored easily and try different things, but don't necessarily follow through to the level that you have. So the fact that you've accomplished so many different things, really executing the things that you've followed through. And I'm sure that I always say that for every 10 ideas, there's one that we're going to actually take action on.
Oh yeah.
Your ideas are exponential, but the question I have for you is how do you keep following through and having the confidence or the faith in the process to be able to go, I'm going to go out on this limb called a patent for a water treatment thing, even though I haven't done that before or whatever, because I know it can be done. Or like what's the thought process that has you be able to follow through on things that are so different?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. And I would say this, and before the show, and we were talking, but you had sent us asked a question, and that was like, what would you tell a younger version of yourself? And I said an answer, but I've already changed my mind on the answer that I told you, and that is, I would say that if anything is worth doing, we've heard this saying all the time. If nothing good is easy, nothing good comes easy. But what I would say is, as a young entrepreneur, as a young person that's trying to kind of figure things out, what I had no idea about was exactly how hard it actually is. And so when when you go and set your mind to something, and no matter what that is, and that's been all over, whether it's writing songs or coming up with patents or running a business. I heard a guy on an interview one time, a long time ago, and it was kind of a joke. They said, was an entrepreneur, a businessman. They said, "Wow, you've been so successful, and you've got all, how did you do it? What's your secret?" And he said, "Well, I did it by working half days." And they were like, "Yeah, half days." The interviewer was like, "Oh my gosh, you did all this. It's like the 4-hour work week. You only worked half days." And he's like, "Yeah, you just picked the half, either the first half or the last half." And so what he was saying was, it's 12 hours. There's 24 hours of the day. You pick the first 12 or the last 12, but you're gonna work for a lot of it. And I think that is something that you can hear, and you can take in and say, "Yeah, I know things are hard." But then it's really, you find out how much you believe that, and how much you believe in what you're doing when you actually get into it, and really get into the trenches and start facing the adversity and the inevitable frustrations and the things that don't go well. Because even in that patent, you see patents like, "Oh, he got a patent." Well, what you don't see is the 7 years of failure that we went through to get to that, just to get to the place where we could file for the patent. We worked for years, and I mean, I was so excited because I had this idea, and it was not being done anywhere in the world. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be amazing!" And I go out and I put the first thing together, and in my mind, I'm thinking, "This is a no-brainer. This is gonna be so easy." And it was just a stellar flop. I mean, I think the experiment ran for like 3 minutes, and the whole thing shut down, and it was terrible. And so, you go, "Oh man," you kind of pick yourself up, and you go, I really think that this idea is valid, but I don't know how to get there. I know where I want to go, but I don't know the path that takes me there." And so you just start going down the path. And even I haven't thought about this in a while, but my first book was Move. And years ago, one of the principles is clarity begets clarity. And as you get more clarity and you move forward, you can see more down the road. That's why we say experience is so valuable, because once you move through something, you have a little bit more clarity than you did. And there's no way you can think through that. I can read a lot of books, I can listen to a lot of people talk and podcasts but at some point, if you don't take the first step, you'll never have that same level of clarity as someone who's actually walking through it in the battle, in the arena, with sweat on their brow, dirt on their hands, and just kind of going through it. Because I think that's something that um, sometimes people overlook. And also, I would say the grit that people, when I see other leaders, I admire people that have grit, that have gone through things and come out the other side. Because in the middle, you really just don't know. And it's like, can I physically maintain this trajectory through this very difficult season to see it to the other side? And so I would say, regardless of what you're going after, you want to go after things that you really enjoy and love and find interest in. And all these different avenues for me, I was very interested in all of them. I was just like, wow, that'd be really cool to write a song, and really cool to, figure this thing out with a patent. It'd be really cool to write a book. I had no idea when I wrote the first book. I had no idea. I didn't even consider myself a writer, and it's like, you do this and you're like, well, how do I do that? Well, let's what's the first step, and let's start there, and then we'll go from there. So, but if you don't enjoy something, it's really hard to maintain that grit and that level of competitiveness and motivation and all these things that it's going to take to get through the struggle. So that's kind of what I would say to that.
That's so powerful, and it really prompts so many questions. I'm gonna back up a little bit and ask one of them, because what you've shared about, just the patent specifically, there's a few things. One of them was that you're at this point where you think it's gonna be a no-brainer. You
Mm,
think it's gonna be no problem,
mm,
but it flops. And it's so much harder. You said, "Oh, this will be easy. This is like, it's obvious almost." But it ends up being so much harder. So in that moment when it fails, and it's so much harder than you think, what keeps you going? Because you felt like it was a valid idea,
mm.
but valid ideas don't necessarily keep humans moving. So what was it in that moment that had you go, and you don't have complete clarity, you've got more
Mm-mm.
clarity because something failed. What had you go, okay, I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna take another step instead of stop taking steps on this particular
Yeah.
topic or this theme.
I think that is a fantastic question. And I think that every leader, every business owner, every entrepreneur, even athletes and any person in transition in their life is asking that question is, how do I know when I need to keep going? And how do I know when I'm going down a road that does not need to be traveled, right? And that is man, isn't that the dance, right? That's what you're asking yourself a lot. And whether they're big decisions or they're small decisions, I would say for me, there is a strength of belief that has to be present for anyone to run that out, especially as you're going through frustration. So for me, I just had a strength in belief of my hypothesis, right? Like I said, this should be true. And really what I'm testing these different things, what I'm really doing is I'm testing a principle, a foundational belief that I believe is foundationally true. And I'm that is so strong in me that I'm gonna test it. And I may not. I may, it's like the what is it? Thomas Edison, I found 1,000 ways or 999 ways not to make a light bulb, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
he just had this internal belief that this needed to be, and I know there's a way. I may not find it, but I know it's there. So I'm willing to take the journey. I was talking to a music executive. Actually, he was representing the country music group, the mother and daughter when your mom passed away, and so he was telling me about. We were having a conversation about the music business, and he said, if anybody's coming into this music business, he said you can't you really it's not even healthy to have a mindset that gives you a way out, like a backup plan. He said, "This is a dream industry. So when you come here, if you're like, well, I'll do it for a little while, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll just go work as a such and such, right? You know, it's
Doesn't
too,
work.
it doesn't work.
Okay. So
you burn the ships, right? So, and that's the problem though, because what if you burn the ships and it doesn't work,
yeah,
You know? Yeah.
exactly. Well, and for you, so that leads me to the answer of the question, did you pre-decide I'm going to try this patent for 3 years, and then if it doesn't work in 3 years, I'm going to let it go. Did you do a pre-decide of a timeline,
That's
or
a great thing.
did you
I think that's
keep
a
going?
really good strategy because I mean, there's certain aspects to life. Like, let's say if I'm starting a business and I've done this before, I'm gonna see if this business is a success. I think it could be, but the strength of my belief is not testing a market, and this is just my idea. If I haven't done even A/B testing on it, then the strength of that belief is pretty low. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's a good idea, so I'm gonna have to set some boundaries because if you don't, you end up throwing money and time and resources at something that's not any good. So I think one of the strategies that you just outlined is what are the boundaries that I'm going to place on this idea, this innovation, this path forward to keep me from running off the rails. Now, if I have the boundaries are different if I have $1 million to invest,
Yeah.
or if I'm bootstrapping, and I've been on both sides of that, coin. I've been in venture funded startups and I've been in bootstrap startups. And the 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 trajectory is totally different, and the boundaries that you can put on those two ideas are very different. And so I think you're exactly right. I think it's asking the question, am I going to go a certain amount of time, or am I going to spend a certain amount of money? What's appropriate for me in my situation? One of the greatest pieces of advice is that I was given early on. I was now we got my wife and I got married, and I was like, we need to get a financial advisor. We need to get a financial planner. We got to manage our money. Well, I had no money. We started at like below zero. We're, young and married and broke. And so we get this financial advisor. I have no idea what he's advising on because I had no finances. But he gave me a piece of advice because I'm looking at, I've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I'm looking around like, all right, I'm going to get this real estate deal and I'm going to do all this thing. And he goes, look, man, he goes, you're looking at deals that are way out of your league. And he goes, an opportunity, that's an opportunity, but it's too big for you, is not an opportunity for you. And so he goes, the more time you spend wasting on opportunities that are not for you, the less time that you have to spend on opportunities that are right for you. And he's like, what you need to be doing, Dallas, is you need to be preparing for opportunities that are right for you. So be patient and wait and prepare. So when that opportunity comes, you'll be able to capitalize on it and let these other things that are opportunities for other people go. It's not a race. It's your race. It's not anybody else's. And so that was just some really great advice. So when I look at that, I go, that advice to your situation says, hey, what opportunities are in front of me that I'm prepared for, that I can take advantage of? And that's going to help me set those boundaries on what's healthy for my situation financially or time wise. If I've got 3 kids that are, 5 and under, then the time that I have, it just is what it is. It's not going to be as
Yeah.
much as double income, no kids, or, retired. It's just the whole different ball game. And so, understanding your situation and things when you want to chase after dreams and different things like that is imperative. I think those boundaries are imperative for that.
I love that. I love that because it really it's not a, carte blanche, here we go. It's okay, let's figure out what's appropriate for my situation. And your strength of belief, that really is, to me anyway, plays into your value of grit.
Mm,
So that strength of belief is okay, do I have enough grit in my belief, in my ability to back my belief up? Do I have enough grit to keep going in that,
right.
scenario? So that also to me points to, you said, are you going to pick the first half of the day or the second half of the day? And most people are going to think, oh, well, in my 8-hour day,
Mm,
morning or is that the afternoon?
yeah.
But entrepreneur realizes like, this is a 24/7 thing that I'm obsessed about because it's only my strength of belief that is going to get this baby off the ground.
Yes.
So when you look at that first half or second half, that first 12 hours and second 12 hours, you clearly understand, which I understand from myself being an entrepreneur for 20 years and from clients, you clearly understand that obsession that has to go into trying to get something to work. So contrast that, which the thing you mentioned, which is the 4-hour work week or a 4-hour work day or things like that.
Mm,
How does an entrepreneur actually balance the that need to be kind of constantly, chronically thinking about the problems and solving the problems in the head, even when they're not working on it? How did you or have you learned to designate that off time
mhm.
from the entrepreneurial brain or from the kind of chronic working? How do you do that? Is it your family kind of is a thing that you prioritize with and you switch over, or do you have certain personal techniques that allow you to kind of, okay, let's dial this down or switch it off, or or does it ever switch off? What is it like for you?
Yeah. I think that you've kind of hit on one of my things that I have to be very cognizant about for me personally, because recovery is not something that comes natural for me. And when you think about, I've got 3 daughters, and they're all strangely enough, we don't. I was not a tennis guy. Neither was my wife. I couldn't even tell you how to keep score on a tennis match for my. I was in other sports, football, basketball, track. My wife was a cross country. All this, no tennis. And then my daughters, we play soccer. All their little, they're growing up, and then I'm like, they're gonna be soccer, and then they come out and they play with their cousin. They're tennis, and it's like, okay, we're tennis family now. All right, we're all in.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I've had to work with them on is understanding that recovery is part of the game. You have practice, you have competition, but if you don't recover and you start getting tennis elbow, you can't play the way you want to play unless you recover. And one of the things, actually, one of my favorite talks that I give, I do some speaking, and the most requested talk is on burnout, because so many people in our culture are running, too fast, for too long, and then they're running up against this idea of burnout. And you don't have to be an entrepreneur for that. It can be, you can be a parent, you can be, you could be a business owner, a leader, you could be in a regular managing a team. Anybody can suffer from burnout if you're running just too fast for too long. And so one of the things that's very interesting, and I had a PGA golf coach tell me this. He's a putting coach, mental performance coach for PGA players. And he said, stress is not what causes burnout. He says, think about it, because most people go, I'm stressed, I'm burnt out. And that's not exactly true. He said, what causes burnout is stress without recovery. is stress. And so if you go and you stress your muscles in the, in the gym and you're working out, that's good. That's going to make you stronger. But if you just constantly max out and you never let your muscles recover, you're going to break something, you're going to tear something. So in our own personal lives, and for me, one of the things that I have to be really, really cognizant about is how am I recovering? And I'm thankfully my wife keeps me in check, and she's like, it's time for a no phone day. You're due for one, or we live on a farm, and so I'll go out and clear brush for all day, and that's just so nice. And that you think you come in, you're all sweating, you smell terrible. But for me, it's just a good place to disconnect, be outside, and just kind of get away from things. So I think for me, it's also doing the small things. It's not just taking a vacation, because burnout, again, vacation doesn't solve burnout. It's not like what you leave behind on vacation. You may be happy while you're on vacation, but you're coming back to it. It's a system that you've created that doesn't allow you to recover. And so for me, good morning routines are a big thing for me. So I take a long time. I'm not a morning person. I'm actually kind of a night owl, but I have to get up early. It's terrible. So I have a very long morning routine. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours of just going through different things. I do the same thing every day. And it's really good, because by the time I hit the door, 8 o'clock, everything is ready to go. So yeah, so I would say small routines, having something to look forward to is something my wife likes, and we do, and vacations and family time. We play music together, and so just finding those things that are enjoyable outside of work is really big, really big deal.
I have a long time background in high performance sport at Olympic and national level, having been working in that field for a long time in my earlier career. And what I love about what you said is how you've systematized the recovery. What I call it is leaning on structure. You've created and designed it to be in your regular life, to be in your world. So it's not just something that, oh, I took a vacation, but you checked out for the first 2 days, and then you worry about coming back for the next day, or you have to recover from your vacation because
Yes.
vacation from your vacation. So on that note, I want to pick your brain on what is so prevalent right now, which is AI. And because clearly with grit, strength of belief, with the kind of work ethic that you understand, with something that you thought might take a few months and turned into 7 years to fulfill on a patent,
Mhm.
understand what it means to work hard. You understand what it means to put in the effort, if you will. So what are your thoughts around AI and how much it really lends to efficiencies and having people kind of do something that might have taken them 2 hours before, and now they get it done in 10 minutes, or something
Mhm.
that took them 10 minutes and now they get it done in 30 seconds.
Oh,
What,
yeah, that's a
what are your
great.
thoughts there?
I have a lot of thoughts on. Yeah, that's great. We can. I'd love to talk about that. I've got some things I'm working on with AI right now. So before I do that, I want to pause for 1 second, because my battery. I want to plug up my battery. It's right.
On.
So AI, I was one of the first 1 million people. It doesn't sound like a lot, but within the first 7 days when ChatGPT came out, I was on something on social media, and I saw this thing about this new ChatGPT. I said, "Oh, I'll sign up for that." I didn't realize I was signing up like the second day that it had gone live to the public. And so I got on it and was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" So I am definitely uh, on the use AI side of the spectrum. Some people are very, leery of it. I totally think it's like anything else, the internet. There's good and bad that's going to come from it. I think that we have the potential to really cause some damage with it if we're not careful and good stewards with it. But I see so much value in in power in it. But one of the things that's interesting, I use it in all kind of aspects, whether it's content creation, or processes, and data. I mean, just with publishing, one of the things that before I acquired this publishing company, they were terrified of AI, because they're like, "Oh, AI, is going to write these books, and so we're not going to be needed anymore." And that's actually not the case. AI is not creative. And so when you think about the amount of effort and time and work that it takes and your personal fingerprint that you have on a book that you've written, AI is not going to do that. It's not given that. However, AI can take a very cool writer and do correct their grammar, at least to some degree, pretty quickly, at least to get it to a state where a professional editor could look at it and make changes. So what I like using AI for is really to streamline processes and manage data. And so you can, in business, expedite certain things that are these routine behaviors, whether it's in customer service, whether it's transcribing calls. That there's a new thing we're using now that AI's going in and listening to customer sales reps, and now we can distill down the data coming in from the calls so we can see what customers are responding to, what customers are not responding to, and then take that data back to the sales team and say, hey, this is how you should be interacting with people. So it's really not something that's taking people out and replacing people. It's augmenting our ability to perform at a higher level. At least that's the way that I see it and how we're using it right now in different organizations.
It's interesting how you're describing it, because I think of a human brain and I think of how we as humans are processing information. And if we have between 5 million and 10 million bits of information that our brain is bringing in, and yet consciously we can only process between 50 and 100 bits of information, then what are we choosing to put our attention on and our focus on? So that can be a great example for AI. Is what you're saying data and processes and the things that aren't creative that need to be done in order to have the creative product come out. However, the other part of it, when you said, I think people should use AI, it's learning from us. So if there's amazing people with amazing values and amazing ideas, and they're choosing not to learn or not to use AI, then they're in that situation where AI is not learning from them. AI is not learning what they have to offer, or and yes, I think too, just like you do, it's the weight of how amazing it is and how many problems it can solve is equalized by how many problems it can create. So who we are, who we decide to be, what our values are, I think really make a huge difference into what the outcome is going to be in the long term with AI.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like any other technology. I mean, you look at social media, and when social media came out, everybody's like, oh, this is so much fun. You can connect with people that you've known, you hadn't seen in 20 years from your high school. And then you get in it and you're like, oh, wait a minute, but we didn't really think about the dark side of things, and the how maybe our kids are getting addicted to technology in ways that maybe are not healthy for them, or how people are using it for purposes that it wasn't initially intended for. And so it's again, to your point, it comes back to us. It comes back to it's almost a reflection of our own values and morals, and we're going to reap the consequences of areas that we need some help in, and or need to kind of step up our game. So I'm hopeful that it will create a conversation that that we need to have about, even if it's through AI. I think that it could actually make us better in that, because we have to stay on our game. It's like nuclear warfare. I mean, like we've got, at least to this point, that we've at least come to the agreement that we don't need to, destroy the world, even though we have the capability to do so. So hopefully AI will help us have the conversations necessary to get to that same point, and we can flourish and thrive using that technology.
It's almost like, I'm going to circle this back to your strength of belief. It's almost like your strength of belief of our own heart, or as humanity, or interconnectedness as humanity. It's that there still needs to be a strength of belief in the good of humanity versus okay, how can I use this to cut somebody else down? And
Yes.
how can I use this to take advantage of whatever the situation is?
And that's the same way with anything, really. I mean, we're operating in a capitalistic system, and yet if we only allow ourselves to say, well, it's only about money, then even capitalism can't work. But if we can approach the system and say, hey, we can have a free interchange of ideas and money and talents and things like that in the marketplace, but we have this ability to have interject our own goodness and morals into that system and have purpose. Because I mean, that's a big part of, when you talk about strength of belief, we do a lot of coaching. We have a one-on-one coaching system that we integrate into companies for their performance management. And one of the things I tell our coaches all the time, because it's not a coach from the outside, like you hire a coach for an executive or a vice president, something like that.
That's
Yeah,
what I do.
that's what you do, right?
One goes, yeah.
If you're one of those, this is
I
wonderful.
get hired to consult. I get hired to, coach. I'm the executive.
Wonderful. And it's so needed because you're helping to offer perspectives and get people to think outside of what their normal frameworks are. I think that one of the things that we talk about when we put this app in is that the people that can afford to hire an executive coach, they can't hire that same coach to go all the way down to the bottom of the organization on the line. And so what we do is integrate this app and say, hey, do this app for everyone else. And so they get, but their manager, which we call a leader coach, is doing that. And I said, look, one of the biggest things that you have to do that you don't even realize is battle for belief. You're battling for the belief of your team. Do they believe the company is for them, or do they believe they're out to get them? Do they believe that you're for them or you're out to get them? Can they trust you? Can they not trust you? Is their work have purpose? Does it not have purpose? And so these things are so important that when we talk about belief, it is so strong, and it moves us into action. It feeds our emotions, it moves us into action. So I think, as relates to coaching, one of the greatest gifts as a coach is to be able to battle for belief, to shape those beliefs. And I believe that we all, have purpose, and we're created for that purpose, and that we bring that to the conversation. So I'm going to be living at my best if I'm living the way I'm made. I'm a number 7. If I try to be a number 3 or a number 2, this doesn't work, And so, so I think that as it relates to technology, AI, those types of things, my hope is that we bring our best selves to that conversation, and interject that into our purpose versus, just going to the bottom line and just saying, well, it's about money. That's it. Because we always end up somehow losing when it's just about money.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Like when so many people just associate business with money, and yeah, business needs to be profitable in order to continue to exist. But really, business is about solving the problems of the world. Business would exist if it weren't solving the problems of the world. And at the same time, what you've just described is, in battling for belief, is really utilizing what's available to us, technology, AI, in order to be able to reach people that would never have, it wouldn't be on their radar or be able to afford another human to be coaching them or advising them on the day-to-day basis. Mm-hmm. If like it's hard to have the right family member or to pay for a coach or that person that's a great mentor in your life. But businesses could potentially have the tools to be able to, now in an affordable way, a really efficient way, to be able to keep that kind of that mentorship or that support, or to really foster that belief. And as you've probably experienced, it could be a leadership team. It takes very, very little to go and splinter the belief from a group. Just all it really takes is someone frustrated that their department or their interests weren't met, and that to be able to consistently bring the connection or the belief back together is really a key thing for businesses to thrive. Businesses are, even if it's a an AI first type of business or a software business, they're still human based. They're still, and we're messy as humans. We're messy. We need each other. We make stories about everything. We have big hearts. So we don't want to ignore that exists. It's really a matter of helping bring that out in people in a way that serves the group or serves themselves.
And I think that's another limitation to AI, to your point. Like, I think that AI can, you could feed all the coaching books and all the information into AI and say, these are the right things to say. And you could, and I've seen there's some counseling, AI counseling services you can log on and, and have a conversation with AI. And while that's good, I mean, it's fine. I mean, I'm sure it can help some people. There is no energy, there's only electricity, but no energy with a computer screen.
Yeah.
And there's a connection, a real fundamental connection and energy when you sit down with someone and you work through something. And
Yeah.
whether that's in a coaching setting, whether that's in a counseling setting or a therapy setting, there's real energy in us as beings that we give and take, and whether that's negative or positive. And so I think there's a limitation. AI may say the right things, but at the
Yes.
end of the day, it can't put its hand on somebody and say, I hear you. I
Yeah.
understand. I've been there. You're going to
Yeah.
make it. And if it does say those things, then the person, it could almost come across as not um, authentic and disingenuous, So I
Yeah.
think there's going to be some limitations. It may be good at training therapists on or other people on how to have certain conversations, or leaders on how to have conversations. But the conversations themselves, I think, it's like you were saying earlier, it's a one-on-one, it's a conversation with people. So
It's interesting. That's one of the main reasons behind the project that I'm on is people together in nature. There's so whether it's a leadership team, whether it's whatever that looks like. So tell me just a tiny bit here while we have a bit of time left about Caveman Delegation.
yes,
That
yes.
book was created.
Yeah, so this has been a fun project. We talked about burnout earlier in the show, and one of the things that I realized early in my career was that I was terrible at delegating. I didn't know I was terrible at delegating. I just woke up one day and everything was on fire all the time, and it was always urgent and always important, and I was at the center of that universe, and there wasn't enough of me to go around, and so I just realized that, hey, if I'm going to get more done, yeah, I'm gonna have to let some things go, and I'm gonna have to bring on a team and help and and be able to delegate. And then once you start doing that, you kind of run into all these walls of shame. Like if you're working for somebody, you're like, if I delegate this, my boss may not think that I'm capable, or if I delegate this, it might show that I'm weak or that I can't handle something. And these are just some myths that I cover in the book. And so, I had to get over those and say, look, how do we delegate effectively? Well, I'm a guy that likes systems, and I need it to be simple and straightforward so I can remember it. And so I was out on the mower one day, a task which I needed to delegate at the time, and just another task. And of course, I'm listening to a leadership podcast because, yeah, got it in line. So I get out there, I'm listening to a leadership podcast. I can't waste time. Got to do, feed your brain. So I'm out there talking about delegation. I was like, wow, this is a great conversation. I need to do this, but I'll never remember this. By the time I get to the house, I've already forgot it. So I said, I need something that's simple. I was like, something like a caveman would remember. And then I was like, well, the question is how would a caveman delegate? And so that's kind of the genesis of the idea. It's a fun idea, but it's an easy system. One of the things that we talk about in Caveman is not just the act of delegating, which is the system, but we say, how do we get to a place do we know that we're delegating the right thing to the right person at the right time, and we do it in the right way. And so that keeps us from having the delegation boomerang of death, where I just throw something out and somebody fails at it and it all comes back to me. And so the goal is when we delegate, it goes out into the wild blue yonder and is successful without me being on top of it. And so the four things we talk about in Caveman, the Caveman system is me do, and that's you doing the work. And then me do, you watch. I'm doing the work, you're watching me do it. If I'm sending emails out on a project, I'm CCing you, you're watching me send the emails. Then you do, me watch. And that is, yeah, you're sending those emails out. I'm watching you now, and I'm coaching you as you go through it. And the last thing is you do up to. And we talked about boundaries early on in the conversation earlier, and that's what we're saying. Hey, if you're bidding and estimating a project, you can bid and estimate up to $10,000 on any project. But if it goes over $10,000, I want you to come get me, because there's some things on those larger projects you probably haven't seen, we didn't cover in this delegation, so I want to be a part of it. Most people go from step 1 to step 4, and they miss step 2 and 3. And
Yep.
so that's, and then they wonder, well, then you say, well, if you don't do it, if you want anything done right, you got to do it yourself. And
Yep.
that's where that comes from. But it's like, yeah, or you can delegate effectively and make sure you pick the right person and pair that with the right thing. And then you've got success.
I love how you've described this, and it's that middle part that's so imperative, and it really, we go back to the beginning where you're looking at this going, I gained so much clarity because of my experience. So we've just basically ignored all of our experience and how we got all of our clarity when we go and just say, go do this. And they don't have that experience and they don't have that clarity. But this big assumption just really made an ass of ourselves by making this big assumption that, well, I'm clear on it, but we've just negated all of this experience and all this trial and error and all of this learning that we've had to do in order to be clear on it. And yet we expect them to be clear on it. And then we're delegating that way. But one of the reasons I think that we're doing that is that we're so tired and frustrated that by the time we haven't had the foresight to go, I'm going to have to delegate this. And by the time we choose to delegate it, we've literally shut down our prefrontal cortex. We're busy being a caveman going,
yes.
I love that you kind of dumbed it down to go, okay, make it bloody simple here.
Yes.
I'm going to do it. You watch me do it.
Watch me
I'm
do
going to
it.
do it. And I'm going to watch you do it. Like, just make it simple. So that, and then I'm going to do it till this point and then check in. And I remember a conversation just a couple of days ago that was, they said, okay, I did what you said. And I went and put it out there and then I said, there's something missing. And they said, what? I said, what do you think it is? They're like, oh, the by when, because we always have by whens. This is going to be done in this manner by this much. When? By when? And because then there's this open thing like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Okay, we're good. Thumbs up, nods. And we as leaders take that and go like, it's off my plate, but it's really not. We've just created an environment where we're going to get frustrated later because we haven't created clarity. We haven't created something that they can really work with. So it's so powerful. I love this caveman. So
Yeah, it's easy. I need easy things that work. So that's why I like the caveman, and I love your by when, because when you do that with your clients, and I know you've seen this so much, is that you're automatically injecting accountability and urgency. It's like, okay, I know if I put down a by when, all right, I've got this. I'm going to check in on this date. I got to have this thing done. So even if I'm a procrastinator and I go right up to the line, I still know by this date, by when I'm going to get this done. And there's this urgency there that's going to drive and motivate you to action. So I love the by when, and that's really good. I know your clients are thriving with that. And I think that is as well with delegation. I do think there's some opportunities to incorporate that in every delegation, because, sometimes we say, well, sometimes if we do the by when, we just think that it's like by now, and so the by when also allows you to go through the process. Like, we're going to go through this process. We're going to get through this process by this time. It's not by now, it's by when. And so there's some time that it takes to delegate effectively. But I think your listeners, I think your listeners will see that as well with delegation and understanding. One of the things about the delegation caveman book is that we did this different than anything else I've read that's out there. We're big fans of the Enneagram. I mentioned earlier that I'm a number 7, but I've never seen Enneagram types tied to delegation. And so we did that in Caveman. At the end of the book, the last third of the book is really just on describing the types. And so if you're a number 2 on the Enneagram, you would be considered like a helper. Or someone that likes to engage with others in that way. And so what you might be great at is pulling on responsibilities all the time. I'll take that. I'll help you there. I'll help you there. And you're great at that. But when you delegate, you may feel guilty for putting that out on somebody. So you may be less likely to delegate because you're innately a number 2. That's the way you function. So to let things go is hard. And it may be harder for you than other types. And so I think that understanding your type and then understanding how that would interface with other types as it relates to delegation. It's kind of a cool spin on the book. That's just one of the things that I like about it.
Well, I think that's imperative because I think of one of my first foundations of leadership is and any leadership, not mine, but is that you need to know yourself and you need to be able to know yourself to be able to lead yourself.
Mhm.
Like if you don't know what someone needs, how can you serve them? If you don't know who you are and what you want and what your values are, how are you going to lead yourself?
Mhm.
Going to be necessary for being able to lead anyone else. So that I love that idea, and ultimately, I wish we had more time because what would be great to do is because I'm very familiar with Enneagram, but I haven't really gone through it for myself. So what would be great to do is at some point I go through it and you go and say all of the things that are, give a real live time feedback.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We'll have
Maybe
to do that sometime. Yeah, we'll do
I
that
think
on the
that's
show. Be really fun. Yeah, yeah. We get my wife too because she's a certified Enneagram person, so she even knows she wrote our assessment, so she's way more. She comes from like a therapy background, so she has a whole different perspective on it than me. So so yeah, we'll do that sometime.
Okay, well, that's so good. I want people to be able to reach you, and you're on LinkedIn or you're on X. So on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, it's Dallas Burnett, your name, and they'll be able to find you. And your book, is it on Amazon? Could they find
Yeah,
your
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere books are sold. Yeah, yeah.
Caveman Delegation? So what we'll do is we'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes. We'll put your Caveman Delegation in the show notes, and then we will be able to really have people reach you. That's
That's
amazing.
awesome. Thank you. This has been such a fun conversation, Kari. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Awesome. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. And any last words of advice for people who are in the thick of leading themselves, leading others, or that entrepreneurial journey? Any last words of advice?
Hey, if it was hard, anybody could do it. So if it's hard, you probably are doing something right. You just need to keep on and really focus on what do you believe. If you really believe in something to your bone and to your core, do the work. Keep in it. You can do it. You can make it happen. You can achieve some really amazing things. But if you don't believe in it, and you really know you don't, then don't waste your time because it's going to be just be a frustration. It's gonna be hard either way.
Oh man,
It's gonna be hard either way, but you can do it.
you'd rather have belief with the hard versus
Yes, exactly.
self-doubt with the hard. So good. Thank you so much, Dallas. And strength of belief, really, really pounding that through. I think that's going to be amazing. And we will hopefully talk to you soon again.
Thank you, Kari.